If you want to drive more e-commerce revenue without increasing your ad spend, and you want the revenue today, not in a year, it's email and CRO. That's how you do it. Reconvert customers from long ago and turn existing site traffic into revenue. The cheapest customer is the customer you already have. So if you want help with this, come to pilothouse.co, fill out the lead form, and ask to speak to me directly.
In the inbox late night, glowing screen, see the light. Email, everything feels alright.
Traffic, inboxing, and list growth. You can't really get all three of these. Like if you're going for one, you're going to have to sacrifice something else. 90% of your iPhone users, if you have a subscribe and save business and you're shipping product every week, they are attributing that recurring revenue to your email program, to your campaigns, whether or not the user ever actually looked at the email. This is like number one thing I see that is wrong with people's programs. Everybody out there, build a program where your communication strategy allows you to message prospects and buyers in one go. Just do it. It's the world's best email and retention podcast, and I'm your host, Jordan Gordon. We are a member of the DTC network of podcasts and the philosophical home of the Pilot House email and customer retention team. If you want to make the sweet nectar of low-cost revenue a large part of your digital ecosystem, then follow us on your favorite podcast app today. This time we are discussing a live rewarm. I'm rewarming a client and there's just a lot of moving pieces. It's an interesting, challenging rewarm, and I thought I would share it with you all as some nice content for anyone who's suddenly needing to rewarm an IP or sending domain, or someone who just really wants to understand what might cause such a thing and how to avoid those things in future. So we'll jump right in. First, I've got a little visual here. It's just a single slide. You don't need to go to YouTube for the visuals if you don't want to. I just want to visualize, first of all, the kind of things that get us in a situation where we need a rewarm. So I've got here the email trilemma, right? And it's just a mental model I use to talk to people about this kind of thing. So you'll see it's a little pyramid, right? There are trilemmas. There's a trilemma. The US dollar has a trilemma. There's all kinds of things that have trilemmas. And trilemmas where there's three things and you can't have them all. At the very top of this pyramid is traffic. Everybody generally wants traffic out of email. And by traffic, I mean clicks or revenue, right? The business end of the gun, right? At the bottom of this pyramid, though, on the left and the right, are inboxing and list growth. And what I want you to think about is how you can't really get all three of these. Like if you're going for one, you're going to have to sacrifice something else. You can try to have a perfectly balanced program, which is actually a great idea. But the second you start pushing for one of these, something else is not going to perform as well. For instance, if you want to have really high traffic and really, really strong inboxing, you're going to need to have tight send sizes, right? You're going to need to have tight engagement. And actually your list is going to start to shrink because a lot of those later dated addresses are going to not get enough messages in their inbox. You're not going to get opens. They're not going to stay in your open segments, and they'll slowly drift away. If you want to drive a bunch of traffic and grow your list, which means getting all those opens from addresses and keeping engaged addresses engaged, so you're sending a whole lot of emails to really big lists to fatten it up, you're going to end up with some like spam problems, right? It doesn't need to be that you are like in the spam folder and you need a full hard rewarm, but everybody's somewhat in spam. We use GlockApps. Shout out to GlockApps. We use that service daily, and you can check out our earlier episodes with Alex, their CEO. And so, yeah, everybody scores some amount of spam in there. And so if you're sending a whole lot of emails to really large lists, driving traffic and growing your list, you're going to see some cracks start to form in there, and you're going to see some domains start to have some portion of your messages in spam. And finally, like, let's say you're someone who doesn't want traffic, or your primary goal isn't traffic and revenue. I'll just say none of our clients. But, if you were really trying to have a really, really, really strong sending reputation and you were trying to grow your list, you have to be so thoughtful in the way that you were doing everything, that those moments where you're like, let's just do this pushy thing, it's going to make a few extra bucks. You're going to have to like sacrifice that moment to script your program so well. So think about this email trilemma and think about how, when you are pushing for certain things, like more traffic, more revenue, when you're pushing for things like really large send sizes so you can keep high potential addresses engaged, inboxing can take a hit. Sending reputation can take a hit. So we had a great client come to us, and they came to Pilot House overall to help grow their business. But one of the things they came with was limping email program. When we run GlockApps, multiple deployments with GlockApps, it says 100% in spam for Gmail. I want to clarify that for everybody out there, especially if you're using GlockApps. I mean, I had a conversation with the GlockApps team on this client because the starting point was really tough. And specifically to keep in mind, the GlockApps reports, if you're using these at home, those are how Gmail, for instance, it does all IP, all ISPs, but in this case, Gmail, all inbox service providers. But in this case, Gmail, that's how Gmail reacts to cold addresses. So someone who's never clicked and opened. So you can be 100% in spam on Gmail and still have people clicking and opening your emails. Those would be high engaged addresses, been on your list for a while. I've never had a chance to sit down with anybody at Gmail to ask this, but I suspect that there is a grace period of a couple of weeks, maybe a little bit more, after kind of a first email is sent to an address, that there'll be a lower statistical threshold to inbox. So we do get some emails, even really bad sending domains. You'll notice like, well, our welcome email still gets some clicks, right? It's like, yeah, there's a bit of a grace period where there's an easier statistical threshold. This is what I think. And it makes sense from a business standpoint. I've seen it in the data, and it makes sense from a business standpoint because they would, of course, think to themselves, yeah, if someone starts a relationship with some entity that has a sending domain, we're going to want to make sure that initial business gets taken care of. But if that entity with a sending domain is being really pushy with email, abusing the spirit of the protocol, Gmail has a spirit of the protocol. They want you sending emails to people who like receiving emails from you. Then they'll just, take you behind the barn, and a few weeks later, whatever, suddenly just crickets. So in GlockApps, you're seeing how completely cold addresses interact with you. If you email a cold address, 100% in spam, pretty in spam. Meanwhile, you can still be getting some revenue out of your email program, right? So you're still getting some clicks. And of course, if you are a subscribe and save style brand, Klaviyo is going to be attributing all of your revenue from subscribe and save to your campaign program. Please go check out the first few episodes where I at length go into Apple Privacy Opens and attribution and metrics and things like this. But if you haven't been sticking around and you want me to just explain it again, with an iPhone, if the 90% of users, when they open a new iPhone, Apple says, do you want to protect your identity? 90% say yes. A strange 10% of people do not want to protect their identity. Those people, if and when they open an email, there's a little pixel that fires, a little image pixel that fires, that denotes, that records when an email's been opened. And so that image is cached. And then in future cases, when someone sends an email to that phone, the cached pixel fires and the email shows as opened, whether or not the user ever actually looked at the email. And Klaviyo attributes on an open. And so all your iPhone users, which is basically half your users, 90% of your iPhone users, if you have a subscribe and save business and you're shipping product every week, they are attributing that recurring revenue to your email program, to your campaigns, right? This happens all the time. This is like the number one thing I see that is wrong with people's programs. I know that our competitors are not listening to my podcast on a broad scale. I know because they haven't got it. And we're not, the World's Best Email and Retention Podcast is not a household name. So lots of people do not know. I've been saying this for 2 years, so I can tell that there's more people we need to reach with the World's Best Email and Retention Podcast, because this is very rarely fixed. And it's the number one thing I see that's wrong with people's programs. So you've got you've got your campaign segmentation, you have your Apple Privacy Opens in there. And every time you send, you get a bunch of false revenue, right? So you've got a program, you've been pushing too hard, and you still see some clicks, but you still see tons of revenue, and you think everything's fine. Not fine. In fact, go look at your Gmail click-through rates. You can find it if you check around on a campaign. And sometimes, very often, I see brands where it's like, click-through rate. I've got an audit right now for a company that has a click-through rate for Gmail of less than 0.1%. And I'm sure they think that their email program is doing something. It's not. That email program is doing nothing. It's very difficult to sell that to people on the phone. Especially it's like, oh, we've been sending 3 campaigns a week. You've been sending 3 campaigns a week. Your email program is doing nothing at all. And that revenue is fake. I can show you in the segmentation how it's picking up all of this recurring, all of your recurring purchases that are happening, whether or not email is involved. And the whole thing's a fugazi, whatever, right? Okay. So what do I do? 12 minutes in, what am I doing on this rewarm? Well, first I'll talk about the segments that I use. 30-day click, 60-day click, 30-day open, and 60-day 2+ opens, 60-day 3+ opens, and then 7-day address created. 7-day address created is something you can get a strange amount, like an elevated number of spam complaints on people on the first 7 days of an address, because they get the coupon, they use it, and then they want you out of their life, so they just click spam. So be careful with that one. Don't necessarily use a 7-day new address. 30-day click, 60-day click, 30-day open, 60-day 2+ open, 60-day 3+ open. The biggest segment on there is, of course, 60-day 2+ open. Someone who's opened twice, 2 or more times in the last 60 days. And of course, on all of these, you remove bot clicks, you remove Apple Privacy Opens. The 30-day click is going to be small. It can be like a few thousand addresses. And you're like, what is going on here? No, our list is like 100,000 addresses. And that it shows you. It's like you think your list is 100,000 addresses. You're sending to 100,000 addresses. That's not your list, though. Your list is the people who actually interact with emails. You pull out all these Apple Privacy Opens, and you're like, oh, the whole thing got cut in half. Yeah, got cut in half. So you do not. So the most misleading metric in email is list size. Now, textbook rewarm stuff, you start with just the 30-day click. It's going to be a really small send size. Do a good promotion, and try to get like a crazy high click-through rate. You want to click-through rate of like 4%. You need a bunch of campaigns. You have to create a bunch of campaigns to do this. So then you send again to that group, and then introduce the 60-day click, right? So incrementally ramp up, maybe kind of double your send size. You want to be, the first message should be like, unless you're huge, it should be like 5,000 or less addresses. Okay, now we're going to get up to, 7 or 8, right? And then next you introduce your openers, your 30-day openers, so they open once in the last 30 days. If you want to be really tight, you can start with opened 2 or more times in the last 30 days, and then go to opened once in the last 30 days. I'll leave that to you. It helps you ramp the send size. It depends on the engagement of your list. And if someone out there who is, they're rewarming all day. By the way, if you're rewarming all day, I'd love to chat with you. Why don't you come on the podcast? Just go fill out the lead form, say, hey, in my role, I'm just doing tons of rewarms all the time. I'd love to have you on the pod. Anyway, then you introduce that first group of openers, a tight one, right? So it's 30 days, 1 or 2. Then introduce the 60-day 3+, and then the 60-day 2+. The last thing you would ever introduce is the 60-day 1+. And the last thing on the click side you'd ever introduce is 90-day click. And what you're doing is just very slowly increasing the send size. So in this case, with this client, so here's the other important point is static send size. So the number one thing you want to be thinking about is engagement. You want high engaging addresses. And second, you want static send size. And that's what made this case tricky and why I'm kind of sharing this with you. So I got to a point where, they're doing about 20,000 emails a send if it was to their prospects and their non-subscribing buyers. They're buyers who are not on product subscription, who are not on Subscribe and Save. And that 20,000 was like, it's just a good amount of their true list, which, I mean, they thought their list was, hundreds of thousands, right? I think 140 is kind of something like that, what they thought their list was. I don't know. I don't even remember because it's not even a real number. Got up to 20 some odd thousand. Okay, that's a good platform. I look at it and I'm like, okay, what am I looking for? The click segments. I send all four segments at once that I was doing, so I can look at how each one is performing. And yeah, I mean, when the click segments are doing like 3-4%, and the open segments are doing above 1%, pretty good place. Like you're in a good place. If an account was doing like 0.24% click-through rate, and that's where you are, your rewarm is working. That's what you're looking for. And you can ramp up from there, but what you should notice is, hey, this is actually still making money, right? On a click attribution basis, it's going to be looking like it's making less money because all that recurring revenue is not there. But when you look at a click attribution, which you can go to attribution in Klaviyo. You can go to your triple whale or to Shopify to get click-based attribution, or you can go in Klaviyo, go to attribution, and you can test or sample different attribution types. You go to a pure 7-day click, and then look at your attribution, and then you can run that. You got to run it every month. It's kind of annoying. I'd love to just like look at a year. You run every month. You're not actually changing your attribution model. You're just comparing another model. Run that back 12 months, put it down in a spreadsheet, and you've got, okay, well, that's what you were doing. What are you doing now? And you got a year over year, you got a month over month, all that jazz. And you'll see, when you're doing, okay, now I've got up to 20,000. It's like, hey, it's actually making some money, right? It's a platform I can actually get some results with email. But, in this case, someone must have clicked or opened twice in the last 60 days to be in here. So clicked once, opened twice. Sorry. Anyway, whatever. It's a tight segmentation. I'm rewarming, but I'm on a platform I can do something. So then it's about like maintaining that send size. We'll get to GlockApps, Postmaster Tools. There's more to discuss here. It's about maintaining that send size. So this client has specific promotional needs, which makes it challenging. They've got a certain kind of message they want or need to send to prospects. And then to their non-subscribing buyers, their buyers who aren't on subscribe and save, right? There's just different promotions, different language. And so the tricky thing about that is when you have first of all, prospects, watch out sending to only prospects, because only prospects, you're going to get a bad engagement. If your program has as a regular thing or sending emails to only prospects, you're going to have worse inboxing. It's just the way it is, because prospects, unless you send to unless it's really tight, last 30 or 60 day kind of recency prospects or something like that, always. If you're just sending to your prospects, they have poor engagement. You're not balancing it with your buyers who have better engagement generally. And also you can have a totally different prospect frequency, and you can hey, you hear this a lot. Oh, we want to convert our prospects. Okay, these are people, so send prospects more. We want to convert our prospects. These are people who don't understand how the email channel works. And so you're trying to just get a result out of the email channel that doesn't make any sense. You need to send more to your buyers. You need to send more to people who are more engaged, people who are more likely to spend. And if prospects don't convert, you can do some stuff. I do it with flows. Don't send a bunch of campaigns just to prospects. It's not the right way to do it. Anyway, so when they are doing prospect only or buyer only campaigns, prospect ones have a low engagement rate, which is bad for the rewarm, and the send size is all over the map. Shout out to Benny at Senders Co. Watch those episodes. Shout out to Pierre at MailSore. Watch those episodes. When we had deliverability experts in and had 2.5 hours of really great knowledge sharing with you all. Give those guys a call too. They'll be helpful. So static send size is important. Probably second most important after engagement. So then the send size is all over the map. It's, now we're sending to 22,000 addresses. Now we're sending to 9,000 addresses. Really tough. So everybody out there, build a program that just where your communication strategy allows you to message prospects and buyers in one go. Just do it. If you got a separate, and then you just, exclude product subscribers and just do some product subscriber messages once in a while, if it makes sense, right? But that's probably a smaller part of your communication strategy because they're already on your highest LTV rails. We did try some of our lifecycle segmentation. We're on LC6, the 6th version of our lifecycle. Every year we launch a new version. We've been in business 5 years, over 5 years as a team, so we're on our 6th version of this. And our lifecycle includes people who have only visited and who not necessarily engaged with email. Those groups in testing, like if you've been active on site but you haven't got a click or an open, well, let me say this. I've looked at just if someone's been active on site, if someone's viewed product, if someone's had a checkout started, if someone's clicked, if someone's had a true open, if someone's had an Apple privacy open. I've looked at the click-through rates of all those groups. And the worst is opens. Opens are trash. Opens are not an indication that someone will click in future. If someone's been active on site, it's a bigger indication that someone's going to click in future, even if they don't have a recent email engagement. But when we tried those segments, like standard segmentation, bad click-through rates. Gmail didn't like it. Gmail at this point only wants people who have recently engaged. That's the doghouse you're in. So this comes to GlockApps. When we were looking at GlockApps through this rewarm, even though we're seeing like 3-4% click-through rate on the clickers and 1.8% open rate or click rate maybe on the openers, strong metrics, GlockApps is still saying 100% in spam for Gmail. So at this point, you can't use it as a tool to understand what's going on because like you've turned so sharp of a corner. You're doing something so different from what you were doing before. And GlockApps is focused on cold addresses. Well, Gmail has not changed the way you think about cold addresses, right? That hasn't happened. So a couple things. Enter Postmaster Tools and enter Gmail specific segments. So went into the rewarm segments, 30-day click, 60-day click, one open 30-day, one true open 30-day, and 2+ true open 30-day, 3+ true open 30-day. Go to those segments, clone them, go to the bottom and say, and email contains Gmail. So now you can look at what Gmail is doing. And of course, in all these, no Apple privacy opens, no bot clicks. So now you can look at what Gmail is doing specifically in your deployments. See, so now you've got like 8, 9, 10 segments you're sending every time. Yeah. In your rewarm, you want to be sending 8, 9, 10 segments and see what all these different segments are doing. So we can see how Gmail specifically is improving. Also, Postmaster Tools. You can just Google how to get onto Postmaster Tools. It's like if you have a Google account, technically you have this. Like, and who doesn't have a Google account, right? So it's there if you've got a Google account and a sending domain. You go in and you set it up, and it's going to show you always last 120 days. It only stores every 120 days. So look, if you want to be a pro tip on the brand side, this is not necessarily what we do on the agency side because we have to be very efficient with our time. But if you're on the brand side, you're just managing one brand. Every quarter, go in and record your Postmaster Tools data. So if you're in a role for a few years, you've got 3 years of Postmaster Tools data. So you can really trend what's going on and understand if what you're looking at is normal or not. Because when you go into these tools, the first thing you think is, well, okay, like this thing is at 80%. Okay, is that normal? And normal versus what? Normal versus itself a year ago. So start recording this because it only stores the data for 120 days. It'll show you the sending reputation for your IP, for your domain. It shows you your spam complaints. Gmail does not send spam complaints to Klaviyo. And use that to understand how your rewarm is going. Your basic is, of course, your Klaviyo metrics. And then you've got your GlockApps, which we just discussed. You turn the corner real tight, and GlockApps it's going to take a while for it to catch up, because it catches up when Gmail says, hey, we're changing the way we think about cold addresses for this domain. And you got your Postmaster Tools. Look, last point I got on this list is promos. Don't forget, while we're doing all this, you need banger promos. Email only sales, 24-hour flash sale. Rock those hard and send to highly engaged segments. Find a base, build up to a platform of a certain number of addresses. It might be I mean, if you've got a proper mailable list like we have, where you remove all the bad addresses, and it's just like this list of built on the probability that a general probability that any one individual event is going to be predictive of driving traffic in future. If you've got that kind of thing, you've got a good solid segment. This might be a third or a half the size of that segment, for instance, right? Get to that base. Try to stick around that base with static send size. And if you've got changes that are happening, so, we got to exclude this, we got to include this, and you want to maintain that static send size, yeah, you've got some segments. You've got, like, in your toolkit, 1+, 2+ open 30-day, 2+, 3+ open 60-day. You've got 1-click 30, 1-click 60. You got 1-click 90. You can mess around a little bit with your engagement segments that you're including. Right? You've got Gmail, you got non-Gmail. You can mess around a little bit. The ISP doesn't matter because the ISPs individually want static send sizes. But anyway, you can mess around with the segments that are in there to try to also not have your send size rocking all over the place, right? That's a little vignette, right? That's like live from the trenches, trying to push a complicated marketing situation through a rewarm and get results. In a month, we were at this platform that we're at, a platform that you can monetize and also slowly build on. There's no rush. The client's not like, oh, look, we need more now. We got to that platform, right? Where we know the program's doing something. When we send out a sale, we know the sale is assisting our advertisers by improving the ROAS, by driving repeat purchases at a low cost, allowing the advertisers to invest more in growth. It's doing its job. And then wait for the time to be right, when it's all looking really good, when you got a good calendar plan, when you've adjusted your business so that you can, have a bit more of a steady send size, when you've adjusted your communication plan, then start introducing your more inclusive segmentation, which would include, on a very tight window, mind you, site engagers, right? Which would include buyers who on also a tight but not as tight a window, because buyers generally interact great, which would include buyers, whether or not they clicked or opened. So you start, including these non-email engagement site visitors and buyers. You want to start introducing that stuff when you really are certain that Gmail and other ISPs think you've turned a new leaf. And that you're going to know that, so the metrics are looking good because you're on this platform. Yeah, the metrics are looking good because you're emailing only your engagers. You need GlockApps and or Postmaster Tools to start catching up, and for that reputation to start improving there, for you to then introduce those more kind of advanced event data points and triggers. Always wonderful getting a chance to share these thoughts and ideas with you. And hey, entrepreneurs, executives, spammers, and webmasters, have fun spamming.
In the inbox late night, glowing screen, see the light. Email, everything feels alright.
Hey, entrepreneurs and spammers, remember, you can't scale without email, and the cheapest customer to acquire is the customer you already have. So please subscribe to the world's best email and retention podcast and learn how to make low-cost revenue a big part of your digital ecosystem.